The Minnesota Vikings have regretted their decision to allow Adrian Peterson to play in the upcoming game on Sunday. Now, if you guys can remember, after Peterson had a warrant out for his arrest because of a case where he beat his 4-year-old son with a switch, the Vikings decided to suspend him for 1 game. And then after he turned himself into the authorities, the Vikings decided, all right, well, we deactivated him for 1 game. Now we're going to let him play again. They thought everything was going to be cool until it turns out a few of the sponsors didn't like their decision to allow Peterson to play again, although they say it has nothing to do with the sponsors. No, so let me go ahead and read you what the co-owner of the Vikings had to say about this. He says, "We made a mistake and we needed to get this right. It's important to listen to our fans, the community, and our sponsors." So obviously the sponsors had something to do with this. Now the NFL also released a statement as follows. Adrian Peterson made a decision to take a voluntary leave, I'm sure he did, with pay to take care of his personal and legal issues. The NFLPA and NFL worked with Adrian and the Minnesota Vikings to resolve this unique situation. We support this decision and hope the best for him and his family. Now, as I mentioned, the co-owner of the Vikings said, quote, "This situation is absolutely not related to sponsor concerns. However, there is a major sponsor for the Vikings that has suspended its sponsorship, that's Radisson Hotel, because of their decision to allow Adrian Peterson to play." And they did release a statement as well. They said, "Radisson takes this matter very seriously, particularly in light of our long-standing commitment to the protection of children. We are closely following the situation and, effective immediately, Radisson is suspending its limited sponsorship of the Minnesota Vikings while we evaluate the facts and circumstances." Anheuser-Busch is another sponsor that voiced its concern. However, they haven't pulled out as a sponsor. They said that they are disappointed and increasingly concerned by the recent incidents that have overshadowed the NFL season.
Okay, now let's keep it real. Did it have to do with the advertisers and sponsors? Of course! When Anheuser-Busch calls, the NFL listens. Okay, yep. There is an insane amount of money involved there. So it's not like they're like, we'll take it under advisement, but don't bother us, okay? We make our own decisions. No, they're the guys who pay the bills. Mm-hmm. We talked about this in the context of politics. The donors get the politicians elected, so they sign the paychecks. Not the paychecks, but the checks that get them elected, and eventually the paychecks when they leave office, right? So they listen to those guys. The NFL is going to listen to their sponsors. When Radisson pulled out, there was panic at the Vikings, right? Mm-hmm. Then when Anheuser-Busch called, Adrian Peterson, you might be the best running back in the NFL, yep, but you got to go. You know what's more important than the best running back in the NFL? The best advertiser in the NFL.
So I know that Adrian Peterson is a very important player for the Vikings, right? And so when he was deactivated with the game or in the game against New England, I mean, they lost by 23 points. So they were probably like, no, all right, he was deactivated for a game. We need him back, right? This is me speculating. I know nothing about sports, but based on what I've read, this is what it seems like. And so they bring him back on thinking like, okay, we got to win. It's, you know, NFL season. We can't fuck around. And then all of a sudden they get the concerns from their sponsors and they decide, no, this is against our best interests.
So final 2 things on it is, one, I do know a lot about football, or I like to think so. And you have to understand the Vikings are not a team without Adrian Peterson. They have no one else, okay? And it's a disaster. They will probably lose almost every game they have left, okay? Jeez. So, and by the way, Adrian Peterson, before all this happened, I liked Peterson a lot as a football player. And I was like, get the guy out of Minnesota. For Christ's sake, man. Can you give him one other play to play with? Anyway, so that's why it's particularly tough for the Vikings. They're like, oh my God, he's our whole team, really? Okay, sure, we'll suspend him for a game. And then when they get the calls and they're like, oh, we're not gonna make any money anyway. Nah, screw it. Okay, and so that's why it was painful for them as a football decision. But that's the whole point. I mean, you're not, the problem has been that you put football above all other things, right?
Yep.
And so now this is the chickens coming home to roost.
By the way, I mean, the fact that football and profit is above anything else, even if it's involving domestic violence or a 4-year-old boy being beaten with a switch, I mean, it shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, especially after that Steubenville, Ohio rape case, right? Where the entire community literally ignored a situation where a teenage girl was raped while she was unconscious by multiple football players in the Steubenville, Ohio football team, right? Steubenville, Ohio high school football team, right? I mean, it's amazing because even in a case like that where there's evidence, there are pictures all over the internet showing that this rape occurred, people will ignore it because they want to support their football team. They don't want it to go away. People went after the victim in that case because they were worried that something negative was going to happen to the football team. It's our culture. It's what we value. It's what we prioritize. It's really depressing, but it is what it is.
So now, could you just not lie about it? So when they said this had absolutely nothing to do with the sponsors, that's such a stupid lie that it's not worth saying. It makes you look ridiculous. And finally, on a positive note, look, the sponsors oftentimes drive programming to be more vanilla and have sometimes, and you got to watch out and make sure you don't offend the sponsors, and it has some issues for content, right? But in this case, the sponsors are doing something positive. Mm-hmm. They're saying, you know what? It's not good for a brand if you beat your kid with a stick, right? And you cut him up, or as in one of the cases, you punch him and leave a scar on his face, right? That's not good for us. It's not good for anybody, so don't do that. So that has become a positive influence. Mm-hmm. And now they know, well, if I want to keep making money, I better make sure that I don't hit my kids with a weapon. And by the way, Adrian Peterson, you're gigantic. And those are the two kids he abused were 4-year-olds. Mm-hmm. You didn't need a weapon.